Boatbuilding News, the podcast. Let's do it. Welcome to Boatbuilding News, the podcast, a series of engaging interviews with key individuals from within the marine industry. I'm excited. This is going to be epic. I am super excited to welcome Leah Tennant, founder of Washdown, to the Boatbuilding News podcast. Hi Leah, how you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. So I am so thrilled to welcome you to the podcast. So give us a little introduction. Tell us who you are and what is it you do in the marine industry.
Perfect. So my name is obviously Leah. I'm the founder of Washdown. So Washdown's a startup which we founded around 6 to 7 months ago. And I started Washdown off the back of my superyacht career. As when I was working on deck, all of the products that we're using on board were either really toxic to us or the environment. And then plant-based products just simply didn't work. So there was no credible alternative. So yeah, so we're getting there.
Wow, so that's Washdown in a nutshell. So let's go back to the beginning of it. So your early career, you were working on a super yacht. Tell us a bit about that and tell us a bit about, how that was day to day.
Yeah, so basically, I started working on super yachts when I was 18 after finishing a UKSA cadetship. So I was trained to be an officer at the time. So I moved out to the south of France. I started doing dock walking. I got my first job roughly around at 18. And then I did that until I was about 24 years old. And so, yeah, it was an amazing opportunity. And yeah, it's an amazing experience with regards to like traveling and seeing the world, obviously the people that you meet. Very high-paced environment, as you can imagine. I'm sure a lot of people have seen Below Deck and try to compare it to that a little bit, I think. But yeah, it is very intense work background. Like I said, that really sets you up then for later on. And I think the ideas and things and the people that you're around and obviously the clients that you work for, I think it really does inspire you for them later on in life for what you want to do. And that's exactly the reason why I started Washdown.
Yeah, so you mentioned Below Deck. So come on then, how accurate is it? Is it a true reflection?
No, so I think some of the stuff, I think the basis of it, some of it that is similar. But for example, like on there, you'll see they turn up, for example, like the day before charter, and normally you're doing like a 3-week prep from that. Or for example, say guests on, you've got guests on for example 3 months with a couple of days. You normally don't have a break in between, and you have like a day to do changeovers. A lot of people say it's almost like the Geordie Shore version, or like Only Way is Essex, if you've ever seen any of those programs to compare it to. So yeah, I think a lot of the things you do on there, you probably get fired for. But I think the concept of, for example, like the crew life and how it is, and for, like how people get on, I think it's it is an intel into it, but I think it's just obviously exaggerated because it is a TV show.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose they've got to make it entertaining, haven't they? Yeah. So 18 though, that's young to be traveling the world. What an experience though. So you must have seen some amazing things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I was so young, and I think obviously I just left school and I knew that I wanted to travel. And I think for me, I've always been quite outdoorsy and adventurous, and I've sailed since I was a little girl, and my parents always really pushed us into being active and exploring. And so I think for me, it was just kind of the natural fall, and obviously the deck side of it, which I think would surprise a lot of people, and did do, I think, at the start. But yeah, I think it was just, it was an incredible experience. And I think it makes you grow up quite quickly and learn like a really good work ethic. And I think just meeting incredible people. I think I worked for Melinda Gates for a little bit, and I think that was probably just, I think, working with people like that and their inspiration behind it, and just like how much of an incredible person that she was, and just like kind and humbling. And I think it really does teach you a lot.
Oh, really? That sounds amazing. I suppose ultimately just by the nature of the vessels that you're working on, like you say, your clients are incredibly successful in whatever field they are, to be able to live the lifestyle that they are. So it must have been, really inspiring. So from there to Washdown, where's the link? How did you come up with the idea? And did you come up with the idea while you were working on board, or was it afterwards? Talk us through it.
Yeah, so I think obviously on board it was because it was so obvious that there was the problem there with regards to cleaning products and the environmental side. And I think the industry is very old school within that sector. And I think it's always the question, you'd question it, and I'd even question it on deck, and it would be like, well, that's how we've always done it. And why would you do it any different? Because that's how it's always been. And I think
Yeah.
it takes people to question that and actually question the effects that it's having, one on you as a user, and obviously two on the environment, which I don't think you realise as much at the time. But even
Mm-hmm.
things, for example, like the products we'd be using on deck, like you get like blisters and things on your hands because you're using them every day, and like it's the same with like the VOC products. So I was doing research actually recently, and it was saying that if you're using products with VOC in them, that it's the
Mm-hmm.
same as smoking 20 cigarettes a day.
So actually, the health implications on the
Yeah,
people using them, is that so? I mean, you've obviously challenged this, and you
yeah.
say that the industry is just, that's how we've always done it, which is probably one of the most dangerous mindsets to have in any situation. But is anyone else, that you've got blisters on your hands? Like, is anyone else challenging this? Was it just you that was saying, "Hey, this isn't right"?
No, but it's just part of it being on deck, and it's the same. For example, like when you're scrubbing teeth, like you scrub teeth with acid. So obviously, and that's good. You're supposed to wear gloves and things like that, but hardly anybody does. And obviously, that goes on your hands, and it's like it affects your skin. And the same if people are using, for example, alternatives. And I think that's the thing that's hard, and that's why it has been this way for so long. Is because there hasn't been other credible alternatives, and I think it's amazing to say, oh, we really need an alternative that benefits us all. But at the
Mm.
time, there wasn't one that got the job done. And I think you
No.
have products that aren't as strong, so they're a lot weaker. But they obviously take a lot more time for you to be able to use them and to
Mhm.
get things done. So that's where I really started to look into how other industries cleaned when I came home and looking at different sectors. And I came across biotechnology. And the amazing thing about that is it's completely natural. So it's enzyme bacteria based. But because of the manipulation of those enzymes, it basically makes it a lot more powerful so that you can do all of those tasks and they actually perform at a higher level than products that obviously don't have those side effects.
So my goodness, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? There's quite a lot to unpack there, and the fact that even if they were looking for alternatives for moral reasons, for environmental reasons, is you've got to have an alternative that's actually going to do the job as well, if not better, to be able to, because you can't, people aren't going to be motivated to shift to another product for moral reasons when it is just not doing the job that they need it to do, and also, what actually strikes me is amazing. And, I don't know if you ever just stop to actually realize this, that everybody out, the thousands of people that were in your situation, that were experiencing the same problem, probably a huge proportion of them were experiencing the problem, but not saying anything. There was probably another proportion of people experiencing the problem, saying something, but just, thinking, oh, well, hopefully it will change. And then there's
Yeah.
which is probably the less than the 1% going, hey, there's a problem here. And I've experienced the problem. I want to find a solution, not just for myself personally, but for the industry as a whole. And
Yeah.
then you go one step further and you actually do something about it, which is just insane. So, for that in itself, congratulations for having that kind of mindset. And what I'm trying to say is I think it takes people like you in all areas of the industry to be the kind of pioneers for change. And there's not enough. There's not enough Leah Tennants.
No, and I think that's the thing, and I think it is just encouraging. For example, I've just been at the Smart Yacht Rendezvous in Monaco, and that was so
Mhm.
inspiring. There's so many founders there that are doing, for example, like different issues, whether it's fuel or like anti-fouling or other issues like that. And it's just, I think, trying to just spark conversations like this and actually making people think. And I think that was what was so
Yeah.
interesting about there is there is a lot more people I think now coming in and actually resolving these issues rather than just settling for how it has been. And I think
Mm.
what's more interesting at the moment is, for example, events like that are actually making it so that startups like myself can actually work with industry leaders that can actually make the difference together. And
Yeah.
I think, like you say, it's trying to target all of those things. So I think it's great having the idea and me wanting to push that and starting a business and doing everything I can to make it a simple decision for people to make better decisions that affect them and the environment. But I think it's the backing and the other side of it that you also need as a environment and in a yachting environment, that you need to push each other and protect that and make it better for the future.
I think that's the thing, though, when you're going to those networking events that you've just mentioned, it's actually having those conversations and challenging people within the industry and challenging each other, but making sure that it doesn't just stop at conversation, that we're actually going away and we're actually putting those challenges and we're making a difference, with our actions, no matter how small. We've all got to be working together and, making the difference where we can in the space that we work in. Because otherwise, we are always going to be the industry that says, like you mentioned right back at the beginning of the podcast, we're always going to be the industry that says, well, this is the way we've always done it. And like I said, that's just the most dangerous sort of mindset to have when we are having such an environmental impact.
Exactly that. And I think that, again, is why really I wanted to start Washdown and the reasoning behind it. And I think even whilst I was obviously starting the company and doing the educational side with what you're putting in the products and, for example, how that works and how actually easy it is to make that choice and to make those small decisions. And I think for me, it just blows my mind even more, the fact that why isn't everybody doing this? And I get asked it all the time. Why has nobody ever thought of that? And the thing is, those cleaning products and biotechnology and all of that has been around for years and years before I was even born. But it's just that people haven't thought to use them in that way or to develop them for example, use for super yachts in the marine industry. And I think, like you say, it goes back to making it simple for people to make those simple decisions. And I think with the Washdown products, that's why it was important for me to make it so that you can use it right from the shipyard process at the start when the yachts are being built, right forward to the user on a super yacht, to your everyday user that uses the boats, for example, at weekends and wants to buy the products in a chandlery, so that there's no excuse. And I think it's teaching people that you can be ethical and you can use environmental products and you still can do the jobs that you need to do. And it's just getting away from that stigma of the eco-friendly products don't work. And yeah, I think that's where the educational side of it comes in.
That's the thing, isn't it? It is an educational, it's an awareness thing, because, I suppose if you make it, you think to a simple decision, myself, car shopping, for instance, I was under the impression that if I bought an electric vehicle, it wouldn't have the range and I'd struggle to charge it. But actually, it's that education that's actually not the case. So it's just telling people that they, things that they just might not have even stopped to realise. They might not have realised that there's actually a credible solution that is equally as effective out there.
Yeah, 100%.
So it works as well. It's better for the environment.
Yeah.
I can't see any downside. Commercially, okay. So let's get it out there. Commercially, is it more expensive? Where does it fit in the pricing scale?
No, so this is the thing. So we only sell concentrated solutions, and again, that's because when you buy ready diluted solutions, you're paying for 90% water. So, for example, when you buy, for example, your standard cleaning agent, even at home, so this much of it will actually be the solution that's needed. And then the rest is water that you've paid for. And obviously that has to be packaged, distributed and sold. So all of our solutions, like I say, come concentrated. So our 1 litre will make 60 spray bottles. So it works out at £1.30 a spray bottle. And if you were to buy like a comparable in, for example, a yacht chandlery or to order online, it would be £40 per bottle.
So an actual fact as well is, the actual transportation of your product, you're taking up less space. When you think about it, when you think about this, okay, you're only 6 months old at the moment, but when you think 6 years, and it's scaling huge, the carbon footprint of transporting it, it's a huge difference between transporting your product and the products previously.
Massively. And again, that comes down to obviously the environmental issues, cost. And again, it's just simple decisions like that everybody can make, not just Washdown, that everybody can make so simply, that make a massive difference. And even waste-wise, because if you think about, obviously, the plastic, we have to use plastic. We use preventive ocean plastic. So for example, they go into high poverty communities at risk of high sea pollution, and they work with the communities and pay them to collect the plastic up to 60 miles inland, and then we turn that into our bottles. But even from our 1 litre, you would save 50 of those bottles ultimately going into the ocean.
Yeah, that's actually, it's crazy, but do you know the craziest thing about it is how simple it is.
Yeah.
So Leah, the question is always, when someone comes up with a simple, idea that's offering a solution to a problem that seems so obviously right in front of us, why has no one done it before? Like, how has it taken until now for this solution to be out there?
And I think I get asked that a lot. I think that's the most common question I probably got asked. Why has nobody thought about it? And even the name Washdown is simple as anything. That's what you do on a boat. But I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture of the fact that I've actually gone and worked in that industry. I understand the everyday needs.
Yeah.
Just even the little things, like our bottles are all anti-spill, so that if you're clumsy and you kick it over, it's not going to go, it's not going to spin everywhere, or it stops, for example, like green introduced waste in product. And I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture of, obviously, I think I'm quite entrepreneurial, and I'm blessed that I come from a family that have really kind of like pushed that and pushed us to see problems and solve it. And then mixed with that industry experience. And then I think also being surrounded by people and working for people that have actually gone and achieved things like that. And I think it's your perception. Yeah. And I think something that my dad used to always say to me when I was younger is choose your hard. And I think that's really sticks with me, with products like that, because it's hard to carry on using those products and complain about it. And it's also hard to set up a company and make a solution to it. But the hard in the end, it's going to outweigh it. And it's for the greater good at the end of the day.
Yeah, and do you know what? I relate to that phrase so much. Your dad sounds really cool because I'm a runner, and I often, I hate being unfit, okay? And so when you're trying to sort of build your fitness up, yeah, it's hard being unfit. Yeah, it's hard running 5 miles, but you know what? Choose your hard. And I just absolutely love that. It's like a no excuses sort of theme vibe to it, isn't it?
Yeah, no,
I do love it.
And I think,
so
going back to that, exactly.
So what surprising challenges have you come across in the 6 months that it's been here that you didn't plan for or you didn't foresee?
Yeah, so we did our pre-launch in last September at the actual Southampton Boat Show. So I think there's been a lot. So it's obviously like the product development side and getting that. So we launched our MVP product to test the industry properly in September. And then we're doing a second launch now with the products that we've been developing in the background. So there's been a lot. I've obviously founded the company by myself, so it's obviously the educational side, like working with the right people on the products. So I work with a bioscientist that she's absolutely amazing, and just getting a good support network around you. And I think there's also things that come with being a female founder and in the space that I'm in. And that side obviously comes with its challenges. And I think for me, obviously I've worked on deck and I've got 4 brothers, so I'm quite used to having to back myself and having to not be your typical person that should be in, for example, that category, some would say. And I think it's dealing with that and learning along the way with that. But then I think you come across people that make that a lot harder, but then you also come across people who are amazing and I think really push you and really is supportive. And I think that's been quite difficult, but I think that's getting there now. And we're just doing a first round of funding. So that's an experience at the minute, but that's the next phase. So yeah, there's lots going on. And I think it's just the educational process, learning things. Obviously everyone makes mistakes at the start and learning from that. And I think all those little things all tie in. And I think when I first started the company, I thought, okay, I found it and it'll be like this overnight and everything would just work out. And as everybody knows, it doesn't work out like that. So I think it took a lot longer than I thought with the products going back and forth and things like that. And it's getting to that stage now where it's all very exciting and all starting to kick off and everything's starting to pay off. But yeah, there's definitely, it's like any business, isn't it? There's lots of trials and tribulations, but it's worth it.
Yeah, but I like your mindset, and the fact that, you know, I asked the question, you know, what surprising challenges, and I love that the theme of your answer was, but I've learned from it. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like you see the challenges, but you see it as a learning curve rather than any sort of barriers to success, which I think is, you know, probably why you're the entrepreneur that you are, really.
Oh, thank you. And I was listening to a Stephen Bartlett podcast, I think, about this, and it was saying about, obviously, I was having to do like speeches and things a couple of days ago at some events, and it was saying about imposter syndrome and things like that. And he was saying that it's the difference of how you look at it. You either look at it as that, or you look at it as a growth
Yeah.
moment and you learn from it. And I think that's kind of changed my mindset a lot on it. And I think as a founder, especially as a female founder, I think you do have to be positive, and you can't let things get to you. And I think you do have to keep pushing and have that mindset that it is gonna, as long as you put in the work and you're passionate about it and you're doing it for the right reasons, then it will always work out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you've touched on it a couple of times about, you know, being female in this industry. So I've recently been having some really inspiring, but somewhat challenging as well, conversations with Belinda Joslin, the founder of Women in Boatbuilding. And when I say challenging, I mean in the fact that, you know, for somebody who's also female, who's also in the marine industry, and, you know, I face those challenges every day. She actually challenged me a little bit in my business, and, you know, how diverse I was being, and, you know, how I approach, you know, other females in the industry and things like that, you know. And so she's actually challenged me in quite a positive way. But, you know, I'd love to hear your views, you know, cards on the table. What's it like to be a female in the marine industry?
I think I'll be very careful what I say.
Well, that's the thing. You just have, just honestly, you know, you're living it every day. You're living and breathing it. You know, what's it like? There's good things about it as well, you know, and I think that we shouldn't always focus on the bad
No,
things.
and I think that's the thing. I think there is a lot of positives that comes with it. It is incredibly hard, but then I think there is also a lot of incredible bonuses that comes with it. And I think there's the two sides. I think you get a lot of people that are very supportive of you and can see how difficult it is. And I think they are very supportive. But then I think on the other side, I think because, and I think maybe because of my age and because of what I look like, I think a lot of people think business wise that I wouldn't know what I'm speaking about. Or, for example, I've had it sometimes with guys trying to speak to me about how I can run my company, or do you understand that you should register your receipts for that and things like that at business events. And I just said, oh no, I never thought of that. And it's just that kind of whether it's coming from a good place or whether it's just, I think a lot of people look at you, and sometimes it is like that chauvinistic side, but then I do think on the contrary to that, I've got so many amazing men around me that are just so supportive and would like bend over backwards to do anything for me business wise and support me. And I think it's just really important to make sure as a female founder that you do have a strong network around you and a strong background behind you. And I think, and the other thing is, it's just to treat other people how you want to be treated. And I think for me as a female founder, if there's anything that I can do, for example, for other women that have asked me, how do I do this or how do I do that? I'm the first person to be like, okay, we'll sit down and go through that, and if I can help them in any way. And I think it's just learning to support each other and just going against the mold. And so what if that's not what you're used to? And I think I was looking at I was speaking to one of my friends actually and a mentor about I'm going for like an investment round of minutes, so I was just doing my pitch deck, and he was saying to me that the statistics is 27% of companies that invested in are founded by women, and that's gone up 18% since 2021.
Oh, really? That's an interesting statistic. So, you know, I mean, I'm in a similar situation, you know, and I have similar conversations all the time. You know, it is hard, you know, the facts speak for themselves, you know, being female in the marine industry, you know, we are in the minority. Do you know what I mean? It is a male dominated industry, you know, and I don't mean that in a negative way, you know, that is just factually speaking. So I think it's absolutely right what you say, that when there are, you know, female founders, female entrepreneurs, or females with strong voices in the industry, it's important that we do support each other, so that you know, they feel heard and they feel that there's somebody in a similar situation to them that's working with them and that's, you know, empowering them, I suppose is the correct term. But it is difficult, you know, but you know, I feel like you say, I mean, that statistic in itself, that it's gone up 18%, I do feel like that it is being recognised in the industry. And I feel there is an attempt to make it more of a diverse. And sometimes the problem you have is that it's as always, probably in everything in life, it's the minority opinions that sometimes tarnish the majority, if you know what I mean.
Of course. And I think that's the thing as well to really highlight. I think there is, obviously, I think for me, I've never really, that's the other thing, I've never, other than this conversation, I've never really spoke about myself as a female founder. I've always just been almost a founder. And I think it's, again, it's come up in a couple of conversations. But again, I think it is, for me, I just think, and I think I'm okay, I'd say I'm okay with it, but it's because I think from a young age, I've had to deal with that, and had to deal with, for example, when I was working on deck. Like sometimes I wouldn't get a job just because I was a woman, because they wouldn't have women on deck. And for example, my first job, who I'm actually really, really close, we're all really close now with the captain, but they originally didn't want to hire me because I was a female and they didn't think I'd be able to work as hard or do, for example, the jobs that the last deckhand could do, even though I was more qualified and had like my yachtmaster and everything like that. And again, it's just like proving yourself. And I think I've just had to do that throughout my whole life. And I think as a woman, that's something that just comes naturally. And it's not, I think for me, it's not something that that's just mine every day. That's just your every day. And I think if you've got that mindset, and I think for me, I'm a very determined person. And I think if I want to do something and want to change something, there's nobody else that can tell me otherwise. And I think that's where you just kind of to just have that grit when it comes to your business, because sometimes you feel like you're crazy because you've got this vision for something and you know that it's going to better the environment and better the industry. And I think you've just got to be so driven and focused on that and pursuing that, and not let the negativity and anything else get to you. And I think, again, it comes to your network and who you've got around you. Because if you've got people around you in your company that are driven, are the same, want to make a change and want to make an influence, then that's amazing. But subsequently, if you've got other people who are constantly trying to push you down or give you negativity and try and put the ideas in your head that aren't necessarily true, or for example, like gaslighting, things like that, then of course, like your whole mindset changes. And it's the same with it would be the same with anybody, whether you're female or male. So I think that is the core to it, is to having a good team around you.
Yeah, exactly that. And that team, you know, I mean, I'm exactly the same. I've got like a small bubble of people that I know have different expertise in different areas, but I value the opinion of, and I know that they won't just tell me what I want to hear. Yeah, they'll give me an honest feedback.
Yeah.
And I could probably maybe 5 people. It's not even a lot of people, but I know that, you know, that 1, they'll support me, 2, they'll advise me, but 3, they'll be honest enough to tell me when, you know, I'm doing something that's not worth supporting. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's, you know, that the closest people to you when you're going into something that's unknown. But then, you know, I think maybe that's actually, I mean, you said that you just see yourself as a founder. And actually, I think, you know, like I said, my conversations with Belinda, what's really challenged me is I almost feel that's absolutely bang on. You know, you're Leah the founder, not Leah the female founder. Yeah. It should be irrelevant whether you're female, male, or whatever. You know, you are just a founder, and that, you know, and it should be based on the credibility of your company. You know, the effectiveness of your product. Could be completely irrelevant whether you're Leah a male or Leah a female. Do you know what I mean?
And it's exactly that. And I think it's bridging that gap. And I think people do it from a way where they're trying to support females, but again, it's because they're singling you out because you're a female and because you're not a male founder. But why can I not do my job any better than a man, or to the same level just because I'm a woman? And I think it's just getting rid of that stigma. And I think the more conversations like this happen, where it's actually raising awareness for that, and just setting the record straight, I think, and just making sure that people are on the same level. And I think it's creating a platform where that can happen. And I truly do believe that is starting to happen. And I do believe that the industry is moving in the right way with regards to that. And I think we will see more and more of it, and more female-led businesses, and more women. Even, for example, superyachts now, like there's more and more women that are like officers, engineers, captains, and I think that should be the norm. Not, oh, you're a female deckhand. That's the other thing I get asked all the time is, oh, are you interior, or how do you know these products work on deck? I was like, because I used to work on deck.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's about removing those barriers.
Yeah.
So, it's about making sure that if you are female and you're trying to enter the industry, or you're trying to be a founder of a product or an idea or a company or whatever, that you're facing the same barriers that you would if you were a man.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. It's removing those female specific barriers. But I mean, I always try and, and I've put a lot of thought into this over the last couple of weeks, even into, the language that's used and the conversations that are happening. And actually, I think sometimes a real sort of check-in point is when people ask me things, or if people advise me on things. And if I think that they wouldn't give the same advice to a man, or they wouldn't ask the same question of a man, then it's their question or their advice that's wrong.
Yeah.
For example, right back in the beginning when I started releasing videos, a piece of advice I received from an old employer was, no one's going to take you seriously if you don't dress for the men. And I sat on that, and I lingered on that for so long. And the advice came from, weirdly to say, I think the advice came from a good place.
Yeah.
In the fact that they wanted me to be successful, and they wanted more people to have access to my videos, more people to want to talk about them, more people to want to view them. But ultimately, the fact remains is the fact that statement, that advice wouldn't have been given to a male in my situation.
No.
So it's wrong. It's wrong, and it's not promoting what females want to promote.
And it's exactly that. And I think it's also what is very difficult, and I was actually having a conversation with somebody about this at a trade show that I was at a couple of months ago, is when you're a female in that situation, is actually how you correct that without being made to look like you're overreacting, or that you're broader. And I think that's because I think even if it's coming from like a good place, or a place where they're actually generally trying to help, but like you say, it's the fact that you wouldn't be saying that to me if I was a female. And I think that's the other side of it, is correcting that, and how people speak to you like that, and what you do about it in the right way. And I think that's the thing as a female that I do believe is very, very hard. And I think a lot of the time it's such an awkward position. And I think that's something that I probably had to learn the most, is actually just saying no, like actually I'm not happy with doing that. And I think a lot of the time, or just taking a step back, like business wise, from them, and doing so I think that's the other difficulty that definitely comes with it. And it's that, like you say, the perception of, would you say it to me if I was a female? And then two, actually dealing with it properly and in a professional way.
But ultimately as well is you've got to remember that actually some of these conversations aren't said with any malice.
No.
They're not meant to offend. They just haven't actually taken that moment to think. And almost, like you say, that challenge coming from somebody to say, would you ask that question of a male founder?
Yeah.
Would you ask a man that? Would you talk to a man about their appearance on camera? Do you know what I mean? If there's no sort of, it makes them sort of challenge themselves a little bit. And I think the more those conversations happen, that's when you see those little changes in behaviours, because, if they react the right way, hopefully the next time they go to have a conversation, they'll be more aware of how it's coming across.
Yeah, exactly.
And they may not have that conversation, or they may change the way they word it, or they may just, something will change in their sort of their mindset and their sort of theory of thinking when they're talking to females, that they perhaps won't do it. And it's little conversations like that, little and often, that are going to make the difference.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, it goes back to, it's exactly that. And I think it's just a lot of, like you say, a lot of people don't realize that what they're actually saying, and I think how it sounds. I think, and they don't, like you say, there's some men don't mean it from a malice way, but it's how, and it's educating that side of it. And I think that's where it also needs to come from men. And I think we're having this discussion about women in marine, British Marine, I think it was Southampton last year. And I think everyone was obviously sat down speaking about women in marine, but there's no men there. And you need to be having these conversations with the guys, because it's not women that are going to be able to change it without men doing that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And this Women in Marine event, I know it well, and quite often, when we talk, in the office or anything like that about going to it, quite often the men say, but is it just for women?
Yeah.
And ultimately the argument really is that it's probably more for the men than it is for the women.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like we're aware of our challenges, but come on, let's challenge it with not necessarily the men of the problem, but let's challenge it with people who might not be as aware or as in touch with it. Because, fact of the matter is, they're not female and they're not experiencing those problems.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. I'm not trying to say, men are the issue. They need to be educated on this.
No,
it's just
exactly that.
Where it's a group, like in any business, in any office. And I'm sure, for example, like most offices in the marine industry, they're all male dominated. And I think it's an education process for everybody, because it's something that you need to combat as a team. And then that's why I think events like that shouldn't just be like dominantly females, because it needs to be everybody's having this conversation together for it to improve.
Yeah, but even females, there's things that like my conversation with Belinda, for instance, it really stuck with me. And, for weeks afterwards, I've started to challenge some of the business decisions that I make, some of the conversations I have, some of the way I word things, how my business is presented, and so it's actually, everyone needs to challenge themselves and each other to make that sort of shift.
100%.
And that's the ultimate message, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, it is just little and just being conscious about your decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Washdown, at what point did you think, or have you yet? Maybe, I don't know. When you thought, do you know what? I've made a bit of a breakthrough here, and I'm starting to make an impact on this industry. Yeah. Like, is there one set moment that really sticks in your mind?
I'm trying to think. I think, I had a message actually the other day. I can't actually say who it was from, but I think it was just a bit of like definitely a breakthrough moment for me, where I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually like, and it was somebody that actually reached out to me. And I think then I was like, this is actually incredible. And I just think that's when I was like, this is actually going to be, really, really successful. And I think having the backing from people like that, I think, was for me a massive moment. And even at the start, to be honest, when I first launched, they did an article in Dockwalk. I think Global Services messaged me straight away saying, "Oh, we love the products. We'll do an article, and like, can we supply the products?" So I went on with them almost straight away. And I think for me, like, that is just like it was just unheard of. And I think I've had other people who've been in the industry or tried to do similar things and have tried to be getting in with them for years and years and years. And I think for me at that moment, I think that was just such like an inspiring thing, especially right at the start, because it's before we'd even launched the products. It was just after photo shoots. So that was incredible. And I think, and Monaco, and I just think I just love Washdown so much, and what I'm doing for the people, and discussions like this. It's just meeting people that are just that passionate about making a change and driven. And I think for me, I absolutely thrive with that. And I just think that we should make it a better place. And I think that's my grandma used to say to me when I was younger, you should always leave somewhere better than you found it. And for me, I think that's what's so important. And like now that my friends, for example, are using the products that I've created on boats and on superyachts, and I think it's just incredible. And it's almost like your dreams almost come reality. And I think that is it's amazing. And I'm just really, really excited to see it grow and see where we are in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing though, isn't it? When all of a sudden there's this moment where you think, oh, I'm actually adding value. Like someone's actually like, and it's weird, isn't it? And I go, maybe it is imposter syndrome, where you just suddenly something happens where you think, oh, I've added value. Like what just me, like how, and I think it's moments like that you just live for, isn't it, when you're when you're starting something, and especially if it's a new concept or a new product, and you're stepping into the unknown. It's almost that validation from somebody else that you're doing a good job.
Yeah, of course. And I think even just things like when we get videos sent back to us from like clients that bought the products that absolutely love it, that like say that, oh, it takes us like half the time to do this now, and just like that they're that enthusiastic about it and love the product. And I think, yeah, it's just incredible to see. And I think for me, Washdown's more about creating a lifestyle brand and a community, and not just a cleaning solution. And I think that's where it's really going. And I think that's just really exciting to see, and exciting to push other people and provoke other people to think about those decisions that they're making, and being able to create that change in a community with other people. I think that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't just have to be in the sort of last 6 months, of Washdown, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received is that you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
I love it. 100%. I completely believe in that. So now on to the final question that I ask every guest. Yeah. What one quote do you strive to live by? What inspires you? Is there a certain quote that really inspires you?
I would probably say the quote that inspires me the most is, what if it can turn out better than you can imagine?
I love that, and that's that kind of take that risk. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That's basically what it's saying, isn't it? Take that leap of faith, go for it.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly.
I love that.
I think you've just got, it's sometimes scary, but I think you just got to jump and run with it. And I think, and that's it. What's the worst that can happen?
Well, yeah, exactly that. Oh my goodness, I absolutely love that. So Leah, thank you so much for telling us the incredible story of, the reasons why Washdown started, and the fact that you've achieved what you have in just 6 months. I can't wait to follow your journey. Fast forward 6 years, it's going to be amazing about where you've come from. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with you soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's lovely chatting with you.
I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, then it would be awesome if you could leave a rating or a review. Don't forget to subscribe so you can listen to us again. See you soon.